deep dive interviews with music gear inventors, builders, creators, and tone chasers. The Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl uncovers the behind-the-scenes stories of the music gear that inspires us. And now, here's your host, Eric Dahl.
So glad to have on a friend of mine for many years now. He is the CEO and owner of GoGo Tuner Pedals. Just amazing. We're going to be talking about that and about his music. The one and only Mike Mostert.
Thanks for having me on again. It's like we never get to talk, do we?
It's so funny because having you on the TV show, the Rock and Review, over the years, Mike, and certainly back when we first met years ago at a NAMM show, it's so much fun to have you on now just for GoGo, because I can't believe it, but you've had GoGo Tuners and Pedals for 16 years now. So you launched this company in 2010, right?
In August of 2010. I still remember. August is actually August 10th, 2010. 8/10/10.
And I remember when you were doing it, and we were talking before you came on the show, to where it's like so many people are like going, Mike, you may not want to get into tuners. That's kind of a hard area. And you were like, no, I got a great idea for this, right?
Everybody in the industry said, Mike, you're crazy for doing this. The biggest companies that are actually doing tuners now were trying to talk me out of it, but I also knew, because of having a rep firm at the time.
Right.
All right. So here was my logic. We can talk about that. So here's my logic. If a manufacturer is willing to pay you X amount to sell their product, well, if I'm selling you a guitar, a cable, a case,
yeah, I'm
going to make my own product in which I'm getting all the profit.
Well, it's so funny too, because once again, your background, and certainly as a guitarist and a musician, and we're going to touch on that also with all the great new music you've been doing, since you're also known as the riff surfer, and so, but we're on label and everything, but bouncing between Muscle Shoals and L.A. and Nashville occasionally, thankfully. But you and I first met with your rep firm, Mike, to where you were working with like all these other companies. We were talking about Ogre Pedals and ESP and Takamine. And it's like all these brands, and you were juggling them all. But I think that's also kind of was the fertile ground for GoGo Pedals to come up.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it was I felt it was like a built-in dealer base,
right?
And I think I was in a very unique position, because usually, in the industry, there's an inside rep, and the inside rep has to cover a large territory for a manufacturer. But for an outside rep, it's a small territory.
Right.
And I grew mine to where, again, maybe, I had a very unique position. So I had covered almost every state. I had every state west of the Mississippi.
Wow.
And my border was from Canada to Mexico, and I had Alaska and Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that time, you still had access to a real buyer, a live person at Amazon. So I had relationships with Amazon.
Yeah.
I had relationships with Sam Ash, Sweetwater, Guitar Center. So I was in a very unique position to do national independence, and I had a large territory. So It seemed, like I said, like, let me make a product in which in which I can make a profit too if I'm going to sell it. And it wasn't only about the profit, and it took me actually almost like 3 years to decide which product I was going to do.
Well, and I got to bring this up. I got to brag on you, because, you and I knowing each other for so many years before you launched GoGo, even to where, you helped so many of these companies, Mike, really make money and sell their product. Like whenever we met at the Ogre pedal booth, which now they're collectible, but it's like, they didn't have anybody there to translate except for you, because you speak 3 languages. And so you were the guy that everybody had to come to and go, can you talk to me about these, like in English? Then you go up to ESP or Takamine, and I was telling you earlier, to where everybody would go, hey, where's Mike at? I need to talk to Mike about, these guitars.
Right.
So
right.
It's going to be in demand everywhere you go.
Yeah, it was a crazy time, and for me, I mean, and I was definitely the overachiever for sure.
I think you still are. Yeah, that hasn't changed.
Probably.
The only difference now is that you're hanging out with Alice Cooper and recording music and doing your own music and producing other people's albums. So
yeah, right. Jamming with Eric Dahl and all those.
It's a tough life, Mike.
Which actually, side note, I'll be with Eric Gales next week. I'm playing
Oh
with
my
Eric.
gosh,
I'm recording at Eric's house next week, which
that's
is
ridiculous. I mean, you realize, yeah, and it's not Eric Dahl's house; it's Eric Gale's house.
right. Close enough,
Yeah.
Gales, Dahl,
Ooh,
and you guys
yeah.
are similar style.
I've had Eric Gales on the TV show on the Rock and Review a number of times, but I wanted to talk about this with GoGo to where, what to me what was so unique about these tuners that you did and was to where it had such a huge screen, Mike, to where the other tuners in the past, and we know when you go back to like the old Boss tuners and everything like that, and you and I both having them on stage, hard to see, what I
Correct.
mean, because it's hard to see the screen, and particularly with sunlight and with stage lights and everything else, and even the old school needle.
Right.
And then when you came out with GoGo, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you still have the biggest LED screen on a tuner. Am I right or wrong?
You're 100% correct, and for many reasons, it's still the largest screen.
Mm-hmm.
But the way there's a few other things too. It's the way there's a way you have to do the lighting underneath. So when the letters pop, or you see, if you're in tune,
Right,
you really see it. Whether it's but that actually took a science, believe it or not, and it took me 14 months per pedal to do it, and even
wow.
on the clip-ons, where you have to. There's a combination of placing the bulb correctly, the power of the bulb,
Mm-hmm.
and then the type of screen. Because the thing is, if it's too bright, it gets washed out.
Makes sense.
So then I had to come up with, actually it's like 3 layers of like screen.
Wow.
So there's a little bit of darkness. So when that light comes up, it's clear.
Right.
I could just go with the 1 layer, and
Well,
it'll be bright.
and I remember when you came out with the first one, the original model, which is still for sale, and it's like, and that was incredible. But then when you expanded, you're gonna have to pull them up. I know you got some examples because mine are actually on my pedal boards, so they're a little bit dirty.
Oh yeah, I have the original right here. Here's the original.
So right there it is. And I mean, what a great pedal still. And I mean, and you developed this for GoGo 16 years ago.
Yeah, 16 years ago. And it's also a power supply, and you can daisy chain 5 pedals with this thing.
Right.
But
Which
the
a lot
other
of us do.
but the other big thing is not only, honestly, what's been such a huge big seller for it, not that it's only the largest pedal screen tuner, is that you can see it in direct sunlight.
Right.
And and that I can say we are probably the only ones that you can see in direct sunlight. And that was another thing that really just put us, really put us on the map. And part of it was there was a rig rundown with our old friend Johnny Highland and John Bollinger, right? And your friend John Bollinger, right?
Totally.
And,
I remember the rig, and it's like it was still I think for Premier Guitar probably one of the most popular rig rundowns that they had, Mike.
Right, and at that time it was the most popular one. And it was going to be my first NAMM in Nashville with GoGo, my first GoGo booth by itself. And prior to that, I've had a lot of support. I have to give a shout out to so many of these manufacturers and also friends like yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I had a great time too as you've come out with these over the years, including the clip-ons, to where I got to cover them for multiple magazines that I wrote for, and it's like and I actually would take them and put them on my pedal board and go play a gig with them. And, and that's the true test. And I mean, but it's like everybody, was talking about your tuner pedal because there was nothing like it at the time when you came out with it. Everybody's like going, where did these come from?
Right. Yeah. But like I said, the thing for me was, or the turning point was that I called it the John and John interview, because they did it on a rooftop in Nashville.
Yep.
And it was direct sunlight, and then I wish I could pay John Bollinger X amount, that I paid him to say.
And John did a great job. I mean, John Bollinger and Johnny Highland both.
Right. And then John stopped the interview and said, "I just want to let everybody know we're on a roof. It's direct sunlight, and you can see the tuner." Yeah. And of course, Johnny has Highland has a sense of humor, and he goes, "And I'm a blind man, and I can see it." And
and Johnny, as you and I know with Johnny Highland, Johnny is so forthcoming with all of that, to where it's like going, he doesn't mind telling people. And, and it was such a it was such a big deal for him because, with his eyesight, with his eye disease, he has problems, seeing phones and seeing pedals and everything.
Correct.
So for him to be able to actually see the tuner and know when he was in tune, because
Yeah, and that transformed the company. Because again, a month later we were in Nashville NAMM, so then people
Right.
got to see it up close what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, like again, like I said, I've had a lot of support from manufacturers, but I've had a lot of support from competitors. So a lot of times I will get calls, and honestly, I have to give a shout out to like Boss and some of these, TC Electronics, some of these other folks. I'm not sure if their executives know, but shout. I have
There you go.
They'll go, I have, somebody who's visually impaired or the blind, but I heard about your pedals from Boss or from them.
Wow.
So the fact that I'm a competitor, but they still are leading them to the right product that's for the customer.
And then that's the kind of business this is, though, too,
Yeah.
Mike, because, you and I, being involved with music gear for so many years and you working with so many manufacturers, me covering so many manufacturers. I mean, it's nice that those huge companies would go, hey, we know a guy who's got a great tuner. I got to ask you this question, and I can't believe I've never asked you this over all the years we've known each other. How did you come up with the name GoGo?
Ooh, that's a good one. For several reasons. So I was trying to come up with a name, and so my ex-wife was a musician, and she was doing this thing for the airlines, and she was like a jazz musician. She actually had a great band, like same thing. She had the guys from like Stevie Wonder, Spyro Gyra, like this crazy jazz band. But she had this thing based around a 60s flight attendant. So she was looking for go-go boots.
Oh my gosh.
So I was helping her on, like look on Google for go-go boots. I'm like, go-go, I like the name go-go. And I said, and just to me, it felt like it was like retro. There's something about the name go-go.
Right.
I think about same thing, 60s, late 60s,
So
70s. And so that was one aspect of it. And the other aspect, I was thinking like muscle cars, and there's something about that aspect. And it's something with even the word tuner has something to do with muscle cars. So GoGo Tuner. And
you want it to tune fast. You want it to go fast while you're trying to tune.
Right. And then the funny thing, not even funny, but but here's the other interesting thing. We're talking about cars and go-go and this. So this color orange, my father used to restore cars.
I love that color.
And again, the industry said, don't make an orange tuner. Everybody said, don't make an orange tuner.
No, whatever you do, Mike.
Right. But everybody knows me as the guy with the orange tuner, right? So, but my dad restored a 1967 Opel GT with that orange.
Love those cars.
So that is my color go-go is based on his restoration of an Opel GT.
I did not know that. See, once again, I learned something new.
So so it's all to me. And the other funny thing, I always, and I will never correct anybody. So if anybody, I do not know anything about this, but people come to me like, oh yeah, I remember your tuners in the 60s. I remember your tuners in the 70s. And as you know, the first pedal tuner really was not invented until the 90s or so, something like that.
And I think it was that original Boss pedal that we all used that was not even designed to put on a pedal board. Right. Everybody had to. It was the TU-120, I think.
Right, and initially, remember, it was based off the TU-12. Remember those? The TU-12s with the needle and the arrow comes in, right? And but people will come up to me, I mean, for years, like, yeah, I remember, in my gig in 73, I used, and I'm like, cool, man, I appreciate it. I had to bring him back again, so.
It's like Animal House. It's like with John Belushi. At that point, you just can't stop him, Mike.
Right.
You just let him go.
Oh,
but now I know where the name came from, but also where the color came from. Right. Because I always loved the orange color, and I had no idea, because you had the Go-Go's in the orange, and then you also had like the gunmetal gray.
Right. Which is based on the Pantone for a Lamborghini, by the way. Again, after a car. So it's
after a car. I am learning stuff in this interview that I did not even know about these pedals. And I've owned and played your pedals for years.
Let's see, do I have one here? Wait, because the caliber, this caliber is actually, if people look at it, they think it's
Oh, look
black,
at that.
right?
Yeah.
But actually, when you take it out of the box and actually see it, you'll see that there's a touch of gray, there's a touch of
Oh, yeah.
black. Um,
They really look, the first time I got one from you to cover, and I used it at gigs and stuff, they really look high end, with that
Thank
finish,
you.
and I love the orange just because it stands out, and I like stuff that's bright and colorful. But with the gray, it looks classy on your pedal board. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just like, it's a pedal,
All right. And I was gonna say another thing too that we've probably never talked about. Another thing that helped GoGo get on the map that's Nashville related. I'm not sure if you ever knew about this.
Okay.
Remember there used to be a show, I think it was on ABC, called Nashville, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right, the music show, right?
Yeah, with Charles Esten. I mean,
Right, Charles.
I had Jim Lauderdale on the Rock and Review the other day, and we were talking about him, like going, did they pay you every time you were on Nashville? Because like you and I know, it's like all the musicians, like Jim Lauderdale, gosh, I can't think of all the, Colin, all these musicians that are like going in and out. Vince Gill,
Right.
Pam Tillis, is like all of them appeared on Nashville at some point, and of course at the Bluebird, the Ryman, all that stuff.
Right. The fake Bluebird that they had on there.
I know, isn't that funny? Yeah, because they've rebuilt. Instead of going and doing it at the Bluebird, which you and I have both been at here in Nashville, they rebuilt a Bluebird to scale.
So
to be able to, it's like, okay.
So one of the early, supporters of GoGo was, what a great gig to have. This guy, basically his job was to replicate what he thought they heard in the studio. He thought, this should be a Telly, this should be a Strat, this should be whatever.
Yep.
But he happened to be a GoGo fan. So almost in every episode, you will see an orange GoGo on a board. And one of the best ones for me, I'd watch the show.
You can't buy that. You cannot buy that.
No,
that's product placement today.
Yeah. And the guy just loved GoGo. And some of the best ones for me is when I would see the GoGo pedal on the kitchen counter on the show.
Was that Danny?
Yeah.
Danny was the one, because I've told so many people, and once again, everybody knows everybody in the music gear biz, but to where he had the best gig, like you were saying, Mike, because he would have to go, and I tell people he had to pair the guitar with the person. So if it was one of the young girls, one of the daughters playing, here's the guitar they would play. Or if Charles was playing, and Charles got to keep one or two of those after the show shut down. But it's like, what a gig. Because I'd see him at guitar shows. I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing, Danny? He goes, I'm looking for some more guitars for Nashville, for the TV show. I'm like going, man, that's a good gig.
Yeah.
and then he liked GoGo.
Yeah, he was a GoGo fan from day one, and I knew him from where I lived in Camarillo, so he was like a neighbor of mine. And,
wow.
Just by chance, he liked GoGo, and so on every pedal board on that show there was a GoGo. And like I said, many times you'd see it in the kitchen, you'd just see it in the studio, and I think from that, like there's a lot of artists I think may have grabbed pedals.
Yeah.
Because I'd given that show many pedals.
Well, and I know also, Mike, that a number of studio musicians, session musicians, use GoGo, and I didn't know if it was from Nashville, but also you were coming into Nashville a lot of that time too.
Like sometimes I'm really surprised, like where I'm not even endorsing them and they're using it, and I'm like, who was that? I was like, he plays at Rascal Flatts. Who's the Rascal Flatts guy?
Oh yeah, the guitarist. Yeah. I know Gary, the lead singer. I can't remember.
And sure enough, he's doing a show about his studio, and he's talking about GoGo tuners. I'm like,
oh my gosh. But that's the best when it's organic, because what was also neat, and I think it's still great about your pedal tuners, is being able to set the calibrations and everything too. Because, as you and I both know, and you're in the studio all the time, they're in Muscle Shoals, but, being able to set the calibrations to where a lot of artists like to tune down a half step or a whole step, Mike.
Right. Yeah. And mine can, you can calibrate from 430 to 450.
Right.
And part of it, honestly, the biggest reason I did that is because there's that whole culture of 432.
Yes, there is. You and I talked about that one time. It's like the 432 cult.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And people will you go on Google, type in every song. People have re-recorded, I think, every song of 432. But it's
and why is that? Why? Explain to me why people are so concerned about having that tuning at 432. You told me one time.
Well, they said it's theoretically more harmonious with nature, right? What the sounds that you hear that around you is based on 432, and then you got that whole conspiracy side. That's just kind of crazy that the Nazis invented 440. That's a whole other thing, and that's supposed to give you disruption. And they base it on like they'll show like it's interesting videos. I don't know really what to make out.
You know, and I'd read an article that dispelled that also, that the Nazis were not involved in the 440, but you know that was an article I read like a year or so ago.
But like there was a great video where they had they were running like an A440 and A432, just an A note, and they put sand on a drum head.
Yeah.
And on a A432, I made a nice design, symmetrical. Yeah. On A440, it was a mess.
How wild!
And
now I'm gonna have to find that video now.
But what that means, I don't know. But it was interesting.
Yeah, I think also, you know, the tuning, you know, and once again, you know, when you're playing with other musicians, and particularly with singers, as you know, and they have their comfort, you know, whether they're down a half step or they're, you know, 432 or they're down a full step, everybody's got their comfort zone for tuning, and you kind of you've got to be able to match that on the fly. Right,
and also another big component, if you're playing with a piano player, the pianos are always slightly, it could be a 431, you know, or 439, 441. They're always slightly out of tune unless they had just got it tuned up.
Right.
It's the nature of a piano.
You know, it's like, you know, and not, you know, with a lot of the songwriters, you know, in Nashville and everything that always use capos and then don't retune. And it's kind of like, you know, I kind of feel like Yosemite Sam and the Bugs Bunny thing, to where it's like, just like, it's always just a little out, you know, because with the capo, because you're changing the tension, you're changing the zero fret, and it's not retuned, and it just they need one of your clip-on tuners, Mike.
Yes, they do. And the clip-ons work the same way for, you know, same thing.
Yeah, like, but you know what, it was so surprising to me, because I remember when you released the clip-ons, and that came after, because everybody was like going, well, we love the GoGo pedal tuners, you know, we've got both of them, but now we need a clip-on, you know, it's like going, and so you didn't want to do the clip-ons originally. It was like the public came to you and goes, yeah, Mike, we need the clip-ons.
Right. But then again, here's Mike, the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the overachiever guy, dude. So, you know, you could just make a standard clip-on, but no, I have to do a real 360 swivel. Mine's still the only really 360 swivel.
I was going to bring that up because at the time, like everybody else, you know, a lot of people have tried to model your tuner pedals and your clip-ons, but at that time, nobody else. Because I remember when you showed me that, you're like, look at this. And I'm like, going, wow. You know, because particularly, as we all know, depending on the headstock of the guitar or the bass or whatever instrument, sometimes you need it in a different position than just in one position, Mike.
Right. And that's why, like mine, like I said, that not only did you have the 360 swivel, but I also have the way I had the arm set up.
Yep.
You can pull it all the way out. So there's a lot of people, because again, my clip-ons were larger than the standard clip-on. Yeah. And you know, and I get it. If you're playing a Martin or a guitar or Taylor, you don't want to see this big clip-on. But the way I did it, I have it where you can just see the clip, but behind the headstock you can see the tuner itself. Right. So it's hidden from the public, and but it had the same features as everything else. And
still very popular. But I got to bring this up too, not to embarrass you, but you know, Mike, you know, you've had a number of different pedals. In fact, you know, GoGo made your own signature model, and you also had your own line of pedals besides the GoGo pedals for a while.
I did. Well, I had made the I called it Mostert, meaning Mostert and tone. And I made them they were like 3Ds, best way I can describe it. Your name really lends itself to music gear. You know what maybe, right? Mostert, yeah, right. Mastortion, Mostert. But the cool thing with that is that you could see all the components inside, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I was working with the engineers from M3.
Oh, yeah.
On the casing. And what I thought would be really kind of cool just this I thought it was be cool. Um, so if I had a green casing,
Right.
the only not the whatever you call it, the top would not glow.
Right.
The perimeter would glow.
That's forward thinking.
Right, so the perimeter would glow green.
Yeah.
The other one was purple, it would glow purple. The other was
Yep.
red, it would glow red. So even without looking down, if it's red, if you know red is your distortion pedal or your delay
Yeah.
pedal, you don't even have to look
And
down.
also, Mike, they look great on stage then.
They did, yeah. They did. They looked really cool,
But then Ogre also did your signature model too.
They made the Mustort pedal, and I have to give a shout out, to my late friend, Sammy Ash, who recently passed.
Yeah.
And it was really because of Sammy, and when I used to work when I was a rookie working on 48th Street way back in the day when there was a Music Row,
Right.
Sammy used to call me Mustortion, and that was Ibanez.
Yeah.
And then Ibanez eventually, there was an article, and somebody mentioned that Sammy came up with the name, but they don't know where Sammy came up with their name. But Sammy named it after me, or told him call it Mustortion, and for years, and even up, till almost to the day he died. Every time he would call me, it was never Mike, never Mostert. It was Mustortion.
Oh my gosh.
My entire life with Sammy.
And Sammy was such a great guy. It's like I was telling some other people too, and obviously from working with him and everything, Mike, to where he was one of those, people behind the scenes in music gear that actually enjoyed it. He enjoyed guitars, he enjoyed the pedals and amps, he enjoyed the people, and so he had a love for it. And I think that came through in a lot of the stuff he did, Mike.
Yeah, he loved gear, like talking gear, but also the thing with Sammy, I have to say, he was responsible for a lot of my success, and I've always thanked him for that, and I thank him now, and if Rachel, his wife, happens to be watching, Rachel, God bless Sammy, but yeah, if it wasn't for Sammy, I would have not started my rep firm, which eventually led me to create GoGo. But it was Sammy when I was like, I don't know what was I going to do, and I don't know if I should tell this. I should tell the story. It's a good story.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was not sure if I was going to be with this rep firm anymore, and they had got fired by one of the companies that we were representing. And Sammy goes, "Hey man, I understand you got, your rep firm got fired by this company." He goes, "You need to start your own rep firm." And I said, and I thought that was, just being polite. I was like, "Oh, that's nice, Sammy," And he goes, "No, Mike, you should start your own rep firm." He goes, "I will support you. Any brand that you have, we will support you, and I will give you recommendations."
Wow.
Right? And I'm looking at him,
what a
and
testimonial.
I'm still like, oh, that's kind of nice, because you still have to do it, right?
Yeah.
And then he looks at me, I think to really shake my ass up. He grabs you by the shoulders and bam, he goes, "Mike, I just took away all your objections. You have to do it."
Wow.
And I had no intention at that time. I was like, "Whoa, okay." And then literally 5 minutes later, I run into the EVP of a large guitar company, and he says, "I need to talk to you." And of course, he's friends with Sammy too. He goes, walks me upstairs. He goes, "Is your old firm going to do? Are they going to make you a shareholder or whatever the deal was?" And I said, "No, they haven't done it yet." He goes, "They're not going to do it. Handle our line." So those two conversations within 5 minutes at NAM is what, like, eventually I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do it. But it still took me about 4 months. And I think this is great. I don't know if it's gutsy or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Or I want to create my own destiny. I'm not even sure if you know this story. And I was with at the time, the oldest rep firm in the music. I mean, they were there from 1912, selling radios.
Oh my gosh.
And they were the oldest rep firm in our industry. They're no longer with us now. And I was making really great money with them.
Yeah.
And here I am, and I thought about it. I thought about what Sammy, and we have to remember, I had no lines. nothing, not one manufacturer. And then I was in the parking lot of my old rep firm.
Yeah.
For at least an hour. I'm like, all right, should I quit? Again, because I had nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you need lines to start a rep firm.
Totally.
And then finally I was like, you know what? Today I'm going to change my destiny. And I walked into my old rep firm, saw the owners. I said, fire me.
That's
and,
bold.
And they just looked at me like, what? I said, no, you have to fire me. And they're like, what? And I told them actually how to fire me.
Oh my gosh, Mike.
And the reason is California is one of the states. I don't know if I should be saying all this, but is one of the states in which you can have a corporation that's generating revenue as the corporation, and you can collect unemployment as an individual. So I had 18 months where I could collect unemployment while I was working on acquiring lines.
Right.
And then sure enough, maybe within 2 months, I had this one big line.
Oh my gosh.
And then because I was traveling to China and doing with them,
yeah.
had met this guy who, I think he handled like maybe part of Waves and a couple other companies. And that was the second company I got. But with them, it gave me 8 lines. So all of a sudden it looked like from one line, I had 9 lines. And then from that, it just started growing. And then
made you a heavy hitter.
And then, overnight, I mean, really within a month, it made me a heavy hitter. And my old manufacturers I was working with my old rep firm started coming to me like, yeah, you want to handle our lines. So then slowly they started losing their lines to myself. And then it just grew and grew. And because it was so successful in that one little area, and this was very unique as well, it started growing into other states. And like I said to you earlier, I was covering pretty much everything west of the Mississippi.
Yeah.
And my board was Canada to Mexico, had Alaska, Hawaii. Then I handled the national chains, and of course, and then then the Amazons and the WalMarts and all stuff, like all that stuff at the time.
That's a lot of ground.
Yeah, I mean, every other week I was on the road. I was on a plane or in my car for years.
Well,
and
and
years
I
and
remember,
years.
Back before you got back into your recording and producing career, you were in and out of Nashville all the time.
Yeah.
Where I'm based out of, and yeah, you were just constantly traveling.
Yeah, it never stopped. Yeah.
But also you've always had such a great reputation within the music gear industry also, Mike, as obviously, with Sammy Ash and with everybody else that you've worked with, all the companies, have raved about you because of the job that you did, with their products. You knew the product line, you know how to talk, you play, what I mean? It's like and I think that honesty always worked for you because, you came from a player's instinct.
Yeah, I think I covered it all. Like you're right. I mean, I can talk music, right? I can talk gear, but when it was time to talk numbers and dealer programs, yeah, I can talk that as well.
Yeah, you can talk both sides of the brain, not just the artistic side.
Correct.
Because as we know, a lot of artists have the challenge with the money and finance side. But you could also go, okay, well, if you want to buy so many of these guitars or pedals, let's talk.
Right.
And you can handle that as well.
Right. Or I could always say, or anything. It could be, you want our guitars because here's the why. And I'll put, this against this brand. This is why our brand is different, or our brand is, better, or whatever the case should be. And so I always knew how to position, whether it was a microphone, amp, or guitar.
And I was going to say the same thing on it, Mike, to where with GoGo, I thought you always did such an incredible job positioning the GoGo pedals, the tuner pedals right from the start. You knew your vision, you knew your place, and you knew the uniqueness of it. And it was very easy, like you said, when you came to like the Nashville NAMM show and everything. And then all of the musicians, especially, you think about all the musicians we have playing Broadway and all the session musicians, they were all playing using your tuner.
Right. And the wild thing was, especially back then, I wasn't even endorsing these guys. I would find out Like I'd visit Nashville. I'd go, Broadway
Right.
at the time was even crazier than now with the music. You hear somebody cool, you walk in, I'm like, oh, there's my tuner,
But I just
and
always remember when you come in and Johnny's go, it's like, well, Mike, I think I need one more of those pedals. Mike,
yeah,
he would always ask for, get another, either that or for a friend or something else, but Johnny, once again, he was doing so well then, you think about,
yeah.
with the Toby Keith work and with everything else, it's like, he was a good artist for GoGo to be tied with.
It was a great spokesman for us, and and obviously, you know, obviously he's a great guitar player. He's a
Oh my
ridiculous
gosh,
guitar
can
player.
play any style of music.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he taught me a rough lesson.
I took
Early
a
on.
lesson from him too at his
Yeah,
house.
yeah.
I went over and it's like
Oh,
going, and I'm sitting there on the floor learning from Johnny Highland, and it's like, and Johnny's once again, and I know he's done videos and courses on it, but as you know, Mike, it's like his way of thinking on how he runs. He doesn't think of scales. There are no
right.
scales to Johnny Highland.
Correct.
All of the solos are within the chords, and that's the way he thinks, and it works for
Right.
him.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing with Johnny, like early on, because you remember, like I was a musician and then I took a break from it.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way of putting it. I wanted to focus on the companies, and then I started getting back finally into playing.
Yeah,
And
it's
and
like
I would,
it's like your pendulum has swung.
oh yeah,
It's like from your original being the musician into all of the music gear and the pedals and the guitars and everything. And now I was going to bring up, it's like now you're back in the thick of it in the studio, playing with Eric Gales and putting out songs within Theory and everything to where it's like, but thank goodness you still got GoGo.
right. Yeah. I mean, and GoGo's still going strong. I mean, I changed the business model. I got away from the larger dealers, so to speak.
And you were in a bunch of those for a while.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the GoGo at one point was so huge, but
Oh,
I also, just so you know, but as you know, like what they call in the music industry, MAP, controlling the price,
mm-hmm.
is a really big thing. And it's hard to control unless I mean, really, like a Gibson Fender tail, they're great at controlling it. People don't want to lose those lines. But but of a lot of the smaller lines, people don't care. If there's enough profit margin, they'll sell it.
Yep.
You know,
But it also
and
goes back to GoGo, and you and I have talked about this before, Mike, the price point.
right,
Because you know the sweet spot.
right. Well, the thing is, I create from a dealer perspective, and that's from a dealer perspective. It's the highest margin, probably the highest margin product they have in this store. So that was the other thing it wasn't just I was trying to make a better mousetrap, but being in the business and being from the rep side and manufacturer, I'm like,
You knew
okay,
both sides of it.
right. So I wanted to make something where, okay, we know who the established guys are. Why would they want to sell mine besides a better mousetrap? So that with we won't mention other brands, but with some other brands, you have to sell 3 of their tuners to make the same profit of selling
Right.
one of my tuners.
Well, you and I also know, whether it's the big box stores or it's the small mom and pop, brick and mortars, Mike, there's only so much space within any store.
Correct.
And especially, kind of like at the grocery store, if you want to be on a prime location, on the glass, close to the register or whatever else, to where you're highly visible, it has to be worth it for the store
Absolutely.
and for the owners to make money, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, retail space is valuable, no matter where you are.
Right. But obviously with GoGo, you've achieved it, and that's why I was joking you about the clip-on tuners, because then it's like you were so successful with both of your pedal tuner models that then they made you do the clip-ons.
Right. But again, they still fought me on the orange clip-on, which is really funny.
I liked it, but I like orange.
And it got to a point where, who was it? I will not name the manufacturer. How's that? There was a manufacturer. I still have the ad saved, and they have a stack of clip-ons,
Mm-hmm.
and it says who would basically put down anybody with a colorful tuner, and the majority were orange. Who would basically saying who would want an orange tuner? Like I said, I won't mention the name, but it's a huge company,
Mm-hmm.
and sure enough, 4 years later they make an orange tuner.
Yep. There you go. You know what was so funny too, and once again to brag on you, is to where you had sent me years ago, back before the pandemic and all, you had sent me some of your pedals and some of your clip-on tuners, and it was almost like being at like a gig or a jam session, to where I would show them to artists when they came in and everything, and then they wouldn't give them back. So it's
Right.
like I'm going, yeah, here's the GoGo tuner, here's the GoGo clip-on, and then they just left. It's like, oh, thanks, Eric. I'm like going, okay, and then I tell you, Mike, it's like going, they took all my Go-Go's.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing, and I should have mentioned it earlier. I mean, I mentioned all these people that have been, part of my success. I mean, that guy right there with the brick wall behind him.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I owe such a big debt to you with the Go-Go world.
But we're I believed in what you were doing. I knew you before you launched the pedal, the Go-Go line, and I believed it, and I used it, and you showed it to me, and I took it, in the field to gigs. I took it to churches, everything else where I was playing, and they work.
All right. Well, yeah, but you also took it many steps further. I mean, how many times did you purposely showed my product to these touring musicians or high profile musicians? You didn't have to do that, but you did that. And, but it's fine, but you would always match me up with the right ones. Like, that this person would love your tuner.
Mm-hmm.
And again, almost all those artists I still have great relationships with, but that was all because of you, for sure.
But to me, it's always fun because just like you and I being friends for so many years, to where it's one thing, it's always fun to talk about new music, album, tour, whatever, book, and all that stuff. But you really know somebody when you start talking about their music gear. You start talking about their tuner and their capo and all these kind of things, and the guitar and the amp and the pedals. It's like, to me, it's a bond. You know what I mean?
Right.
With all of us as musicians, just like yourself. Particularly now that you're back, basically touring again and all the studio work. You live with that gear. It's not just a tool. And it's certainly a tool to keep you in tune, and it's a guitar is a tool to make music, but
it's an extension of you, for sure.
It is. You bond with it.
Absolutely right. It's a part. Right. It's one of my limbs. Really.
It is. I mean, it's like you're like inseparable. But I wanted to talk about too before we talk any more about the gear stuff. To where let's touch on a little bit about the new music you're doing, because I know with In Theory, you guys have been having some great success doing a lot of releases, but now this year, you shared a few of the tracks with me that we can't share because they're embargoed. But it's like, your new music, Mike, you're really pushing the edge, and doing more solo work also. And obviously a lot of these artists that you work with in Muscle Shoals are coming on your album and on your solo songs.
Right. Yeah, this was something, like I said, In Theory has been, and we continue, to kill it right now. I mean, look, I'm still very proud
on the charts and all.
Yeah, I mean, In Theory, we had 2 top 10 singles, and one single still blows my mind. We hit top 10 in classic rock, active rock, and on the metal charts.
That's ridiculous.
And I'm like, really? I guess I'm doing something right, And but with the solo record that I started working on, that's really more of an adventure or a journey of what I'm going through personally, as you know, with my parents and the health and. And I just want to make my own statement that was different from the band.
Yep.
And
I think as an artist though, Mike, and certainly you've always been an artist through all the different things that you've accomplished, but you've got to have that voice and being, the great son that you are, helping to take care of your parents, but also you've got GoGo pedals, you've got In Theory, and you've got solo music in your head and in your heart that you want to put out. So it only makes sense to do that as well.
Yeah, and we just started cutting stuff, and I can announce some of the guests. Like, we can announce this already because it's all confirmed. But I have the drummer from Blackberry Smoke, Kent Aberlay. I'm not sure if you should get him on the show. He's also an author. He has this great book. Oh my God! In fact, I'll see him in a few days. They're actually playing right by my parents' house. And
mention the Rock and Review. You know a guy.
Yep, we know a guy, and Kent's a great drummer. Knocked it out of the park for me. But
now I got to ask you this though: with the new music, with the solo project, Are you going to be releasing it as singles or as an album? What's the vision?
The first 3 will be singles and eventually an album.
Okay.
You know, so the best way I can describe it, yeah, there's a blues element to it. There's part of it that's I don't like to use comparisons that much on it, but there's a White Snake. If White Snake met R&B, you know, so there's a little bit of there's still hard rock to it, but there's a little bit more blues R&B to it as well.
You know what? I got to bring this up, not to embarrass you, but I'm going to. I loved it on social media, like the video and the stills and everything of like you and Chris Angel also.
Oh yeah.
It's like it's like going. You know, you're one of those people. It's like, and once again, that's why you fit into Nashville so well, to where you will never say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I was hanging out with Chris Angel." It's like going. You look on the social media, it's like, yeah, that's Mike and Chris Angel in Las Vegas.
Right. Yeah, they're right. His
or you and Alice Cooper or Eric Gales, which I think Eric is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's fun, and that was a fun week with with Gales and Chris and because
it's nice to see when other people, Mike, are talking you up.
Yeah, I was Gales. I have to say, and you've interviewed Gales, and
yeah,
I have way too many stories. It would be like a 10-hour show, but I met Gales through our mutual friend who's probably been on these shows. Well, Victor Wooten.
Totally.
And what happened with Victor is Eric was supposed to be at his camp.
Oh.
And I told Victor, I said, "Come on, Gales is on my bucket list. I got to go play with him." And Victor's like, "No problem," but because of my situation with my parents, I couldn't make it.
Oh.
And
Victor is such a family man and such a good. Besides being an incredible musician, he's just a good guy.
He's a nice guy. Yeah, I consider Victor family, and and will go out of his way for you, and it's big heart. And then what happened with Eric was, sure enough, 3 or 4 weeks later, he was playing by my parents' house. So I reached out to him. I said, "Look, Victor's been trying to connect us." Mm-hmm. He's like, "Look, come down to the sound check. Let's see how we vibe."
And as you know too, with Eric Gales too, it's like his wife handles a lot of the stuff for him.
LaDonna. Yeah,
and she's a sweetheart.
Yep, and a great percussionist as well.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. And so the funny thing with Eric was we were at sound check, and I just thought he was being kind. He's like, "Man, sound check thing." He was just like kind of like, I felt I was getting a little brushed. He's like, "Let's just do something, once I'm done with my tour," which is like 2 months later. So honestly, I thought he was just being polite. He goes, "Here's my number. Just call me in December." So I call him up in December. He goes, "Okay, these are the dates I have available." I'm like, "Okay." So he gave me 3 days, but I had 7 days to put something together. So I didn't have a song. I had nothing.
Right.
And I cut tracks with someone else originally. But then knowing my experience with Eric as sound check, I'm like, good is not good for him. Yeah,
he's just so amazing.
If it's not great, this wasn't going to be up to, especially like I said, he's one of my idols. He was on my list. So what happens? I cut. So this was on a Tuesday, and I was flying out on a Friday. Tuesday night, I knew it was not going to work, so I call up Glenn Sobel. He's with the Hollywood Vampires and Alice Cooper. Right. We end up talking until about 11 o'clock at night. He's trying to find engineers. He's in California. He goes, finally, 11 o'clock at night. He's like, "Okay, I got somebody."
This is like your Prince moment. It's like Paisley Park with Prince. I need an engineer.
Yeah. And then Thursday morning, he goes, "I can do it Thursday morning." And then, all right, I said, "Okay, but I have to get a different bass player too." Right.
Right.
And sure enough, they're like, "Well, I think you know who it is, but Jimbo Hart." Yeah, now Jimbo, he's with Jason Isbell. So I'm like,
and Jimbo's so good.
And I already had Clayton Ivey, one of the Swapper guys, on key.
Because you're friends with all the Swapper guys.
Thursday,
there we
go. So on Thursday, I cut the drums, and Jimbo had COVID at the time, so he was across literally 1 mile away from the studio.
Yeah.
And there's this plugin or app called Audio Movers. I'm not sure if you ever use that in the studio.
Yeah.
So we had Audio Movers going, and I had the camera going, so I could talk to him. I could see the visual, and I could hear him through our speakers. He did 2 takes, done. Very next morning, I
Well,
fly out to Eric's place, and that was an experience for me because when I see Eric, he gives me a big hug. I
yeah.
always have to, I share the story with everyone. He gives me a big hug, and I call. He wears the matching pajamas. He's got the Flavor Flav watch. It's Eric,
But
and
he is so gracious,
yeah, and
as an artist and a person. I mean, every time I've been around, Eric Gales before, and certainly, you've played with him, and stuff,
yeah.
where he's just very, he gives of himself.
Oh, absolutely. And so then finally, he goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I'm explaining to him. I have great video. I'm like, "Okay, Eric, I want to do this." And he's like, "Okay." He straps on the guitar. He becomes honestly the most serious cat on the planet. I've
Hmm.
never met anybody more serious on guitar. When
Yep.
he puts that thing on, and we're playing, and then we're just going back and forth. And I felt like I had to bring my A game, but I was pushing him as well. I felt maybe he didn't feel it, but he was. I was pushing maybe to a style that maybe he's not used to. Maybe if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Totally.
Um, and we were doing Since I've Been Loving You, which has
Mm.
Tony from In Theory on it.
Yep.
But I wanted to make a dark version of it, like a really, like there's a heaviness to it,
Right.
So while it's blues, it doesn't come off blues. Most people don't even know it's the same song
Right.
until 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes into it. So, but anyway, he was so serious where he's like, "Oh, Mike, we don't do it this way," and I'm like, "No, this is how we got to do it," and then convinced him, and we did it my way, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he goes, "Mike, when the solo comes in, you should be the first guy to play on the actual solo," and then
Wow.
I did it, but when you do it right, he jumps out. He's like, "Yeah, that." And he goes, "Right." But,
That's a heck of a compliment.
and then what I still think, and I have to admit this to the universe here. And I do this like, and I end on this note. And he starts like, not berating is not the right word. He's like, "Your vibrato's wrong. Too sharp, too flat, too fast, too slow, too this, too that." I'm like, "Oh my God," over one note. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my,"
Because he's a perfectionist.
right. But he goes, "Mike, you're the first thing they hear in the solo. You're the most important thing."
Got a
So
point.
I start the solo and I end the solo.
Wow.
And again, the way I ended the solo, again, he jumped out of his seat in a positive way, him and the engineer, or because the whole thing's basically in minor, so it's this dark thing.
Which I love.
And then I switch it to a relative key, so I switch it to the major. So I
Mhm.
do a D major, but I stole a lick from Brian May. I go da 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 da. It gives it a nice lift, and he was like, "Yeah,"
You got the
and
seal of approval.
yeah, and then the extra seal was I had this whole intro worked out, and he was like, "No, man, no, 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 no," like, and I was like, finally, he's like, "Okay, man, it's your thing. Let's do it." We did the solo, and then he starts putting back his matching pajamas and all that stuff, getting ready. And I remember he's all packed. He hears what I'm doing in editing, and then he goes, "Got it. I see what you're trying to do." He goes, "Now, as you know, he's a lefty,
Yep.
right?" He goes, "Give me your guitar."
Oh my
And then,
gosh.
so the first 25 seconds, people don't realize, is him and I playing in unison, but him playing my guitar righty, just flipped it over,
Pulling a Jimi Hendrix.
right? And he just played it, nailed it. He goes, "All right." And then again, and then he goes back to the other guy. He leaves within 20 minutes. I get this beautiful text from him. He goes, "I hope you got everything you needed. I'm thinking about you and your parents. And
Oh my gosh.
God bless." He goes, "Mike, whatever you need." And
What a blessing.
and then then there was so many moments, and then I saw him um, maybe like 5 months later at the City Winery in
Oh,
Atlanta, and I'm just sitting there in the front row, to the side, and I had this video, and of course I posted the video because it's Eric Dahl saying something, and he goes, "I see you there, Mike," and then he stopped his set. He goes, I want to let everybody know we have this guy here, and he kept saying, Mike Mostert. We did this song together. He goes, let me tell you, everybody. He goes, this guy is amazing, and he kept going, amazing, amazing, amazing. Buy his record, and honestly, Eric, I mean, I was welting up the way he did it.
That'll bring you to tears.
I mean,
Gives me goosebumps just talking with you.
I was so emotional about it. And the funny thing, thank God it didn't happen that way. I didn't have enough memory on my phone, so I was going to like videotape it. I didn't know it was going to come, but I couldn't do it. So I just put my phone down. I absorbed the moment, and that's what made it very special.
Right.
So every day I was checking, like, YouTube, like somebody had to like, shoot the concert. Mm-hmm. Sure enough, 3 or 4 months later, someone goes City Winery, Atlanta, and I get to that part, and it was even better than what I remembered.
Oh my gosh. But I think you're better off just living the moment. Well, I want to make sure to, for our viewers of the podcast and our listeners of the podcast, Mike, we need to tell them where to go for GoGo Pedals, but also where to go for In Theory and where to go for your solo music, and the album coming out this year with Mike Mostert. You're going to have to give us all the websites and all the social media. And also, you take a mean picture. I mean, like all the pictures, like even the one we're using to promote this show that you're on. You're very photogenic, Mike.
Well, I appreciate it.
But where do they need to go for the website, social media, for all these things?
So for GoGo Tuners, it's really hard. GoGoTuners.com. Really difficult. GoGoTuners.com.
What about In Theory and Mike Mostert?
Well, In Theory is InTheoryOriginal.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on the In Theory site, it's actually a very thorough site. It's very intuitive site. So there's I have 2 players, so people can play it. But I also did something really, I feel, again, a little bit different than. I wish more musicians would do this as well.
Yeah.
I also have on my site, they can actually download it where I get instead of going, even though I am on Warner Brothers and and they can download it on all these digital platforms, they can also download it off of my website.
That's
off the In Theory website.
Yeah.
Or if they want to take it one step further, they can buy our CDs or our merch. So we have a whole page of that. Or
and you're gonna have your solo. You're gonna have your solo music there too, Mike.
Eventually, yeah, I'll have some. I'll have the solo. In fact, I put out one solo single that I was sitting on forever, and that's on the In Theory site. And of course, that's Victor Wooten and Rod Morgenstein.
Yeah.
Which I always call like a rhythm section that doesn't suck, right?
Right. Oh my God. And neither do you. And I'll tell you what, I want to thank you for coming on the Gear Gab podcast. Mike Mostert, be sure and go to his websites and social media for GoGo Pedals, for his In Theory band, but also for the brand new solo record coming out this year. And also check out all the tracks.
And also the Mike Mostert official on Instagram is a.
Yep.
That's where you'll see all those fine pictures that Eric does.
All those fine pictures. I know. It's like I'm gonna have to talk to your photographer and like bribe him, Mike. It's like I want to look cool like Mike, but I got to thank you so much for coming on the show, Mike, and
I appreciate
congratulations on all the success. And I think it's going to be a great year for you, buddy.
I appreciate everything. Again, I appreciate your friendship. I mean, man, how long? I mean, like I said, I owe you so much.
You got to come visit, and I'll take you out for a hot chicken.
I know. Last time we did Greek.
I know. We got to mix it up.
Or did we do Acme last time? We did the.
I think last time was Greek.
It was Greek, and then before we did, what was it like? The Japanese? Yeah.
Yes.
It was upstairs. It was upstairs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mike Mostert, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for joining the Gear Gab Podcast with Eric Dahl. Subscribe to our weekly conversations on your favorite platform. And if you like what you hear, don't forget to leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Gear Gab Podcast. You'll never know who our next guest will be.